So you collect LEGO Star Wars, or you want to start collecting in 2023, but then someone turns around to you and says, "Hey man, did you know there were 40 sets released during 2022? It can be pretty challenging and strenuous when you don't have a plan on how to go about collecting LEGO, especially LEGO Star Wars, because you see all these creators out there building $1,000 clone armies, or buying UCS sets which you could just only dream of. So hear me out and watch the end of the video, because I've composed a list for you with my advice on the best possible way you can go about collecting LEGO Star Wars on a budget in 2023. My first bit of advice is to niche down, but I've already niched down. LEGO's huge in general and I'm only collecting LEGO Star Wars sets, so what can you be on about? I'm pretty certain that's probably just what went through your mind, but Star Wars is massive. You have sets from The Mandalorian, The Clone Wars, Rebels, dioramas, the films, The Bad Batch. I think you get the picture. You've got to narrow your list down into what you're most passionate about. If that's creating a clone army, then you've got to filter out all the sets which are just irrelevant to that purpose. I'm not saying that you can't go and buy other sets which look amazing or have just been released, or even one that you've wanted your whole life, but you have to filter out the subcategories which just don't interest you as much. So if you're not as big of a fan of The Bad Batch as you are with Rebels, then don't go and buy a set such as the Justifier just because it's $40 off. Just because it's on sale, it does not mean it's a good purchase. You don't have to always stick to one subcategory, because there will be sets released from different periods of Star Wars which you do really want. But if you narrow yourself down to a rule of thumb of just buying sets in 1 or 2 subcategories, maximum 3, then you'll start to amass more of a collection in which you take pride of and enjoy the most, compared to stressing and regretting buying a set through impulse when you see a set announced which falls under your chosen sub-themes. Now this leads me perfectly onto tip number 2. Not every deal is a good deal. So on Amazon, you see 10% off of Captain Rex's helmet. Fantastic. In comparison to being a LEGO VIP, you get an extra 5% off. But LEGO do promotions such as double VIP points. And if you want to be even smarter than that, then you can use cashback sites such as Rakuten. I know this video is not sponsored, but it will allow you to get even more money back, such as right now with LEGO, you can get an extra 7.5% back just through buying with Rakuten. So theoretically, if we put this into perspective, you'd be getting 17.5% back with your VIP points from a double VIP weekend compared to Amazon's 10%. This also applies to sets which are 30, 40, even 50% off. Unless it's a special promotion such as maybe Black Friday, then there's more than likely a reason why they're discounted so heavily in the first place. Probably because they're just not selling. If we use the Justifier again, even with £35 off right now in the UK, if we take its total price of £114.99 and divide that by its piece count of 1022, it works out to around 11 pence per piece, which for a set with £35 off, it's still way too expensive. Yes, you get a really cool range of minifigures such as Cad Bane and Omega, but is it really worth paying all that money just for the minifigures? Because quite frankly, the Justifier is just not a very good set. And for reference, a good price per piece is around 8 pence or less. Don't be afraid to buy secondhand. We've all been there. Besides, who wants to have Lil Pedro's secondhand Lego? If you're clever and you source the right purchases through sites such as eBay and Facebook Marketplace, you can pick up sets and minifigures at heavily discounted prices. Most of the time, they've only been built by this person once, and then they've become dust collectors on a shelf, or they just haven't been built and they've been parted out from new. So here's my example. You've chosen to niche down towards clone army building and you want to get the ATTE. If you can't afford the $140 price point, then you need to think whether you want the set because of the minifigures or just for the ATTE itself. If you want the build, then just go on somewhere like eBay and source it for around $60 from someone who's just parted it out, and they're just doing this either because they only want to keep the minifigures or they've got it on a good deal and they're just trying to make a little bit of extra money. But if you want the 2/112 clone troopers or even Commander Cody, buy them separately from the whole set. Most of the time, these sets just haven't been used and they're just from people parting them out just in order to make a little bit of extra cash. So filter out the junk that you don't want and just get the bits that interest you the most. Set a budget. This applies to everyone. Whether you have $50, $200, or even $500 to spend each month, set a budget and try to stick to it as best as you can. Trust me, it will massively help and will allow you to make those huge purchases without stressing over what you just spent. Say you set your budget at $100 a month, but you really want to go and get the UCS Razor Crest. You still can. Budgeting though will help eliminate those impulse and regrettable purchases that we all make. So how do you go about getting the Razor Crest with just a $100 budget? You set yourself a map with a time frame for when the end goal will be in sight. So for the next 12 months, you're going to set aside half your $100 budget, which will therefore allow you to slowly save the $600 you need to get the Razor Crest. But 12 months is a year, that's just way too long. But that's how you can eliminate the impulse of just buying something because it looks good on a shelf, because it's new, or just because there's so many people talking about it. If you want it that bad, then you'll still want it in 12 months time, which will then make the end goal much more rewarding. And you'll be able to enjoy the build 10 times greater than you would if you blew your budget and had to stress for the next year about how much you actually regretted it. My final tip is to not compare yourself to others. This goes in hand with mock building, army building, the size of your collection, your budget, niche. Basically everything else mentioned in this video goes into this point somehow. We all have a different budget, we all have different knowledge, abilities and interests. It can feel so disheartening to see someone spend $2,000 building a clone army in just a week whilst you've worked so hard to build up your clone army in 6 months and you still have half the amount that they do. It's hard not to get jealous, and we've all imagined what it's like to be M&R and spend $3,500 at a single convention, or Coconut Brick Studios with his 45,000 piece mocks. You've got to put things into perspective and only compare yourself to, well, yourself. Look at some photos of your collection from a year ago, or take some now so you can look at it again in 6 months time and then compare yourself to you. See if you're happy with how you've grown your clone army, or even developed your mock building skills, and then take a plan of action as to how you'd like to further this over the next 6 months. So there's my 5 best tips on how you can collect LEGO Star Wars in 2023 on a budget. If you have any other advice or any ideas that would help others, then please do leave a comment sharing this down below. Remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and if you fancy checking out another video from the channel, then maybe check out the one popping up on your screen right now. Otherwise, I'll see you all in the very next video.